It's been the forbidden question, but does the world have the right to ask? Did COVID-19 come from a lab?
There are still multi-trillion-dollar questions the world needs answered. Most importantly, how and why it began. Up until now, China has been reluctant to help, hindering efforts to find out the truth about this disease.
Wuhan is located in the central Chinese province of Hubei. It's home to 11 million people. Also in this sprawling metropolis is one of the world's leading biological research facilities, the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
From the very beginning, throughout December, it was spreading, and we now know it was spreading human to human. But the official line of the Chinese government was that this was all related to an animal market, and once they closed the market, it would all go away.
Did it actually emerge in a bat-infested copper mine 8 years ago in remote southwest China, where 3 men who worked there died of a disease almost identical to COVID-19? And what happened to the infected human blood samples when they were brought here to a laboratory in Wuhan, in the city at the centre of the COVID crisis?
What can you tell us about this lab leak theory? Tell us about it.
Well, the theory continues to have a role because nobody is happy with what the WHO did when they investigated Wuhan as a potential source.
In early 2020, when the Wuhan Institute of Virology said, we've gone to all the viruses, coronaviruses we've got stored in the lab to look to see, did we actually have COVID-19 in our repository? And then they said, we didn't find, COVID-19, but hey presto, we found, the very closest genetic relative to this, which is rat G13. Here it is.
RATG13 is the name of one coronavirus they extracted from the bats in those caves. It is 96.2% identical to the virus that causes COVID-19.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Do you think that this virus could well have come from a laboratory?
We cannot exclude a laboratory origin of the virus.
So, Richard, you were one of the first people internationally to come out and say this virus may be the result of a laboratory leak.
Why is it so important for us to know the origin of this virus?
Oh, I mean, it changes everything. I mean, it changes how we approach lab work in the future. So unlike nuclear weapons, a laboratory can be very small. You can create something that can devastate the world potentially from an area that can be easily hidden. So we need to know, should we change biosecurity protocols if laboratories can leak viruses? If it comes from animals, it also points out how we need to be more humane with animals and what those practices should be, whether animals should be transported from the countryside to busy city centers. So it sets a trajectory on how to prevent this in the future. So the origin is important, but it's, of course, layered with a lot of politics at this point.
So,
Diamond, let's start with the night Wei Jingsheng came over for dinner at your house on November 22. What was different about that night?
There was an urgency about Wei's manner. I mean, Wei normally is a very relaxed person. But that night was a little bit different because he talked in almost a different tone.
I mean, some of these people who came back from those games were sick with something.
More than 9,000 athletes were there.
Dr. Ai Fen also went public, saying authorities had stopped her and her colleagues from warning the world.
I mean, we do see some indications in our own data, that NIH has, that there was COVID circulating in the United States, certainly in the earliest month of, as early as early December. possibly earlier than that.
In '97, he made global headlines when he defected to the United States. Wei still has impeccable contacts high up in the party, and they were telling him a virus was spreading in Wuhan in October.
Whether the first patient was there or whether someone had been infected beforehand and come to the market is actually the key issue here.
Mr. President, welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
You've seen all of the intelligence. When do you think the virus first started?
Well, some of the intelligence is classified, and I can't talk about it, but common sense tells you it most likely, and when I say most likely, like 95% came from the Wuhan lab. I don't know if they had bad thoughts or whether it was gross incompetence, but one way or the other, it came out of Wuhan and it came from the Wuhan lab.
What makes this so awful is that this could have been avoided.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And China knows it, which is why they're working so hard to create a different narrative.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to Wuhan Virology
Do you support
Institute.
sending money? We did, under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant.
Wuhan, mid-November, and first cases of a strange new flu start surfacing.
She is literally disappeared from public view.
Did he work at the Wuhan wet market? Did he visit the market?
Well, this is the interesting thing. He actually didn't visit the market.
But that chance was lost over a 2-week period. On January 7, a week after they identified the flu as a new coronavirus strain, Chinese officials informed the World Health Organization. But they advised that with just over 40 cases, they had it in hand.
I don't blame the president. I blame, the Chinese Communist Party for this.
They were seeing cases coming into the hospitals that had nothing whatsoever to do with the animal market.
The theory the virus originated from a Wuhan laboratory leak is again gaining traction.
Making people disappear is actually a major feature of the regime. I mean, it's actually truly a People's Republic of disappearances. Dissidents, journalists, and anybody the government doesn't like, they disappear. They disappear into oblivion forever. It is also a sad story of political wokeness because the reason many scientists sign on to that kind of rhetoric to accuse anybody who's seriously interested in the possibility, not the certainty, but the possibility of a lab leak as simply racist.
Diamond Liu and Wei Jingsheng are close friends. She's a high-profile human rights advocate. He was once a Communist Party insider. He'd come to Diamond looking for help. Who could he tell in America there was a virus on the loose in Wuhan? Did he think this was a coronavirus?
Yes, he did say it was coronavirus.
How did he know about it?
Well, in the, among the Chinese diaspora, there have been talks about it. And Wei, being who he is, tend to be the recipients of many information. People seek him out.
That when they went into China, they just talked to researchers there in the lab. They didn't actually look at the data or the lab books.
It's a pandemic of bureaucracy. It's not.
And the essential question will be, was it done with intent or was it done accidentally? And
it is completely clear now that the vaccines don't really work at all.
They emphasized that there was no evidence of human-to-human transmission.
Coming as China continues to reject accusations, it downplayed the severity of the outbreak in those critical early days.
All along, we have acted with openness, transparency, and responsibility. We have provided information to WHO and relevant countries in a most timely fashion.
But there is now mounting evidence of a cover-up. Do you think China's been honest and upfront since the beginning of this outbreak?
It's obvious that we look back to the beginning of the outbreak, that Wuhan health authorities were trying to downplay the significance of this outbreak.
We haven't gotten back to normal. This is going to be remembered by the younger generation as a catastrophic moral crime.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for His Excellency Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee, President of the People's Republic of China, and Chairman of the Central Military Commission.
They're the Olympic Games for military athletes. Held every 4 years, Wuhan was the host city in 2019. 2 weeks later, they returned home to more than 100 countries.
Oh, I know that people got sick. I believe there are French athletes got sick. I believe there are Germans. Some Americans got sick too. But getting sick in Wuhan in that particular time frame of the kind of symptoms that are very similar to what would later known to be coronavirus symptoms, that obviously deserve investigation.
No one was ever tested, but there was one man who knew something was wrong. China's most famous defector to the United States, the father of his country's democracy movement.
I thought that the Chinese government would take this opportunity to spread the virus during the military games.
I didn't even know about the military games until someone from the Army called me in December of 2020 and asked me if I could explain what happened at the Wuhan military games and whether these people had fallen sick with an early emerging strain of COVID.
As the site of a potential virus superspreader, it doesn't get much bigger than this. And in the weeks and months that followed, reports emerged of athletes becoming sick.
It is suspicious.
Wuhan health authorities released that first press release saying that there is an outbreak, but there was no human-to-human transmission, and it's not SARS or it's not coronavirus. So I think that from day one, Wuhan health authority was not honest and was trying to hide important information.